Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we're going to talk about the Spanish explorers and we're going to find out what do you know about Christopher Columbus. Columbus Day just passed, as you guys should know. It's the reason why last week you did not have school on Monday because it is a federal holiday. So what do you know about Christopher Columbus and the contribution that he made to our country today so that we celebrate a day in his name? What do you know about Christopher Columbus? Take a minute, maybe pause the lecture and just think about what do you know? So let's talk about some of these Spanish explorers. So the Spanish exploration started in the Caribbean, then Central and South America. And the most important was conquests of the Aztecs by Cortez and the Incas by Pizarro. Now, Cortez led an army into American mainland, eager to claim new land for Spain. So what he did was he laid plans for this colony and its capital to be called New Mexico. A lot of times, I'm not sure if you've ever seen La Azteca or Plaza Azteca. That definitely comes from the original Native American tribe that was in the New Mexico territory. And then we have the Incas by Pizarro, and Pizarro was a Spanish soldier who led 180 men against the Incas and in search of gold and riches. So remember, one of the G's was the gold. He captured their ruler and massacred over 1,000 of their followers. The first permanent colonies in what will become the United States are founded by Spain. St. Augustine, which is present-day Florida, is founded in 1565 to protect Spanish treasure fleets. So this is just a map. I wanted you guys to take a look at it. These are the areas that were colonized by 1660. So in orange, we have Spain and the areas they colonized. In green, we have the areas that France colonized. We see them up kind of near what is like present day Canada. So we have, oh, that's white. So we have Quebec, Montreal, and you see that was originally called New France. We have England in the blue, which is all along the coastline here. We also see it down here in Maryland and Virginia. We have the purple, which is more inland, which happened to be the land that the Netherlands were able to gather. And then we have the areas that are kind of like this white color. That is areas that have not yet been explored by Europeans. And I'm sorry, I missed this last bit of dot. Those are key settlements. So these are key settlements in the New World. They're all up here. Yep, if you see all the little red dots, I'm putting on the black dots. We have St. Augustine, which, as you guys know, this is present day Florida. And then these like creamish colors are explored but not settled yet by Europeans. So if you take a look at the map, a lot of these areas were colonized by the 1600s, by the middle to late 1600s. So let's talk Columbus. I hope you guys were brainstorming some of what you know about Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus was an Italian sailing for Spain, and what he was looking for was a water route from Europe to the Indies because they were rich in gold, spices, and other goods. The king and queen, Ferdinand, because they believed he could find cheaper and quicker ways to the Indies, helped to fund his exploration. But instead of finding the Indies, which when I say Indies, I mean like India, he landed in a part of Americas that became known as the West Indies. And if, for those of you who didn't know, the reason why they originally called Native Americans Indians is because they thought they found the West Indies or the Indies or India. Now, on the other hand, we have Magellan. Magellan was a Portuguese explorer, and he was the first man to circumnavigate or sail all the way around the earth. He thought if he found a strait, which was a channel through South America, he could sail west to the Indies. He got Spain's support and found a channel at the southern tip of South America, which today is called the Strait of Magellan. So Columbus's 4 voyages. So in 1492, Columbus set out on an exploration because he wanted to find an all-water route to Asia. He competed with the Portuguese to find this route and thought the trip would be 2,000 to 3,000 miles, and it actually ended up being a 20,000-mile trip. Again, it was financed by the king and queen, and they helped him establish 3 ships: the Santa Maria, the flagship, the Nina, and the Pinta. And when he traveled, he named the island the West Indies, and most people believe that Christopher Columbus landed on San Salvador. He sailed south and claimed the land as Hispaniola, which is now Haiti and the Dominican Republic. And the natives that had already lived there, Columbus called them Indians. He left 39 men to start a colony and sailed back to Spain to spread the word, and honestly became a huge hero for finding this new land, this new world. On his second voyage in 1492, his goal was to expand and continue exploring. This time he took 17 ships and 1,200 men, and they all returned to Hispaniola. When they got there, they found the men that Columbus had left to keep exploring and colonizing. He found 39 left for dead. He tried to build a settlement, but was clashing with the Native Americans that were living there. Eventually, he beat them, and when I say beat them, that he had fought with them and pretty much killed them off and made his own colony. He began to exploit the resources, especially gold, and by 1496, he returns to Spain very wealthy and is even a bigger hero. In 1498, his goal again was to expand and continue exploring, but this time he only took 6 ships. He sailed to Venezuela first. European to do that from South to South America. So he went from Venezuela to South America, and he was the first European to do so. He returned to Hispaniola and becomes governor of the island. And at that time, once he becomes the governor, Columbus was very brutal and kind of ruled the land through terror. Colonists began to rebel, and in 1500, Columbus was imprisoned and is shipped back to Spain in disgrace and poor. He really turned his back on those people who fought for him and who helped to settle the land with him and helped to colonize. By 1502 to 1504, he went on another exploration, and then another exploration. One last chance, one last-ditch effort to kind of bring back his fame and his glory. He tries to enter Santo Domingo, but is denied entry. They were very disappointed on his brutal ways of treating people and denied him of coming in. He was determined to find the westward passage, so he sails to Jamaica, then along the coastline of Central America. He stops at Panama but refuses to cross overland and never makes it to the Pacific Ocean. He began to exploit the Indians, take gold, and try to convert them to Christianity. But the Indians attacked, and Columbus and his men ended up fleeing. When he tried to sail back north, but boats began to leak and bad storms came, and Columbus and his men are shipwrecked, and they ended up on Jamaica. In 1504, Columbus and his men were rescued. 110 men out of 140 survived. When Columbus returned to Spain, failing to save his reputation or his future, less than 2 years later, he died at 55 years old. This is another map, and I'm going to try to make this as a little bit less of a lecture than the last one. But this is another map that kind of just highlights areas known to Europeans before the 1450s. So we see that in this green territory right in here, and even some little spicks down here. But these are all territories known. And then these orange territories right here, those are Portuguese strongholds. So those are lands owned by the Portuguese. And then we have the arrows that are kind of leading towards what the Portuguese expedition was, Columbus's first voyage, so on and so forth. If you want to find what all these details mean, I suggest looking at the legend, because it'll tell you what each line represents. And then up here, it gives you a graph on how much distance and how many miles or kilometers it was. Just take a look at it. It's pretty interesting, especially if you're not really familiar with geography. This is going to be super helpful, and is definitely going to be helpful when it comes to your quiz. So let's talk about some of the other Spanish explorers. So we have Ponce de Leon, who established a colony at Puerto Rico, and he sailed north looking for a fountain of youth and discovered Florida in 1508. Then we have Vasco de Balboa, who established settlement in Panama and was the first European to see the Pacific Sea, or the Pacific Ocean, in 1513. We have Francisco de Coronado, who explored north from Mexico and up the Colorado River and saw the Grand Canyon in 1540. Last but not least, we have Hernando de Soto, who explored Florida into the Carolinas and west to the Mississippi River in 1541. So let's talk about explorers sailing for Spain and Portugal. Amerigo Vespucci was the Italian sailor, and he sailed for both Spain and Portugal. He sailed to the Americas, and honestly, that's where we got the name from in 1501. He was this Italian-born merchant and explorer who took a part in early voyages to the New World on behalf of Spain around the late 15th century, and by that time, the Vikings had established settlement in present-day North America. And Christopher Columbus had already, quote-unquote, discovered several Caribbean and Central American islands. Yet, it's Vespucci whose name that truly prevailed. Early accounts of his voyages now are believed to have been forgeries and quickly spread throughout Europe. In 1507, using these letters as his guide, a German cartographer, which is someone who studies maps, created a new map naming the territory now known as South America in Vespucci's honor. For the first time, that the New World, the word became America, and the word America was in print. So here we go, where we just go over some of the names that we've talked about throughout the lesson and kind of look at their Spanish explorations. So we see the Dutch, the English, the French, the Spanish. You should recognize that list of 4 over here as the big 4. Don't forget it. You're going to see that again. And if you want, just take a minute, look at the map, just kind of see how crazy it was, how much people were exploring over this time period, and really just take a look and try to interpret it as best as you can. And you'll probably see this map again, but I just want you to take a look at it, look at the map routes. Don't forget to look at the legend and as well as the key when in terms of like the distance. The Spanish Empire by the 1600s consisted of the southern part of North America, Central America, the Caribbean islands, and most of outer South America. So as you can see from the first couple maps that we showed, the exploration, they really set out to get, those 3 G's, and they were able to attain it. It's kind of crazy to think about, and it's almost difficult to conceptualize what that time period was actually like to physically be there or to be an explorer. I hope that you all enjoyed the lesson and you took a minute to really interpret the maps as best as possible. Again, don't forget, you are going to see this again on your test on Friday. That concludes our lesson for today. There are lesson questions below, so make sure you answer them to the best of your ability, and I'll see you all in the live class.